Kazuki is by far the most interesting character in Body Daddies. I'm not saying that Rei and Miri aren't great, but I found Kazuki far more compelling because of the struggles that he faces. From the moment he's introduced, we see glimpses in his past life. A wife, a baby on the way, and of course the mystery of how it all fell apart. It's very clear from the way he's initially interacting with Miri that he always wanted to be a dad, that he always wanted a family, and yet the best he could get was a messy roommate who spends his time playing video games, doesn't know how to cook, how to clean, or how to do any chores really. I play games too, a lot. I love games, but at least I clean up after myself. My space, where I work, where I record, where I edit, where I sleep, where I eat, it's always clean because I can't deal with the mess. Rei, on the other hand, is a bit of a different breed, but that's not exactly his fault. Maybe cleaning skills should have been included in his training as an assassin, and then he might have gotten along better with Kazuki, at least in the beginning. Regardless of this, they still remain friends and actually work quite well together on most missions that they're on, including of course the one where they find and later adopt Miri. From the moment they adopted her, Kazuki showed a lot of traits of what makes a good dad. He showed these traits a lot sooner than Rei, very likely because he was already expecting to become a dad before his wife/girlfriend got caught in the crossfire during his mission. This is the guilt that we see him carrying throughout the whole show, which finally comes to a boiling point when he leaves to visit his wife's grave, but he also uses this as a teaching moment and a bonding moment for Rei and Miri. And while Rei is much more resistant to bond with Miri, at least at first, this is a bit more of an issue for Kazuki as well, because even though he is detached from a lot of things, he's a womanizer, he's known in the gambling circles, he has his vices, right? But one thing that he is very adamant about, the thing that he warns Rei about, is that they shouldn't form bonds. He even warns Rei against adopting a kitten because it's dangerous for their work. This, however, isn't because he's trying to be cold-hearted. It's exactly the opposite, in fact. He's already lost people closest to him, and he knows what that pain is like. He doesn't want to put anyone else through that pain, not even a cat. Not even the women that he sleeps around with. He's trying to detach himself as much as he can for his own safety and the safety of those around him. Kazuki always puts the well-being of others first and their safety as well. However, that also might come at the cost of their happiness. He pushed Miri away because he wanted to protect her. He avoided his sister-in-law because he thought she never wanted to see him again. These actions all come from a good place, a good heart, but these actions are clouded by his own fear of death, both his own death and the death of those around him. Over the course of the show, we see him get more and more paranoid over Miri's safety, which then ends up with him sending her away to be with her mom, but of course not before giving her the best family day one could ever want. Kazuki and Rei also bonded a lot during their time with Miri. They grew a lot closer as a result of taking care of her. And for Rei, this meant cutting ties with his dad and his criminal family, and as for Kazuki, it was finally letting himself move on from his wife and child's death after years of letting himself feel guilty over it. And it finally allowed him to move on and get close to people again. Because of Miri, because of her influence and her presence in their lives, both of these men were able to become better people. It was that closeness and bonds that were able to pull Kazuki and Rei back together in the end and have them reunite with Miri, becoming a real family that we see in the epilogue. But it's funny that the only thing about Kazuki that remains the same throughout the whole show is him being a womanizer, at least according to Miri, because she calls him out on sneaking around to have a drink with the ladies that frequent their restaurant. And speaking of that womanizing, I personally don't think it's bad that they kept Rei and Kazuki as just friends, because I think that the romance plot for the two of them maybe would have taken away from their character arcs in the show. I think that for the episodes that we got, maybe their arcs would have gotten lost in the sauce a bit if they tried to do that. And now that I've said all of this, I'm turning the conversation back to you. What did you think about the show? And what did you think about Kazuki eventually managing to overcome his isolation and trauma? I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And remember, don't just consume, think.